was Jang Yoon-gi, the Gwangju murderer, of the tough mind constitution type? Or a tender mind constitution? As I said, constitution type is inherited like blood type from one parent. So, did Jang Yoon-gi inherit his father's constitution type? Or perhaps his mother's constitution? And what about Jang Yoon-gi's uncle, who appears to be implicated in this case, just like his father? What kind of correlation exists between the constitution types of siblings? Let's explore this. Firstly, I understand that some of you might be uncomfortable with me discussing a murder case. However, to truly comprehend the light, it is imperative that we also delve into and understand the darkness that exists. And to truly implement a secure and safe society, we must understand the dark underlying incidents at its foundation to be able to achieve that safe society. And because this case particularly concerns a high school girl, I am sharing it with you all here on this channel. I've explained that out of the 4 constitution types, 2 are tender mind and 2 are tough mind. And I've also mentioned that in cases involving murder, robbery, rape, arson, and even severe school violence, the majority of offenders are typically of the tough mind constitution. Because of that, you can probably deduce what constitution type Jang Yoon-gi has. The 4 Human Types Research Institute I often reference has identified Jang Yoon-gi's constitution type. For copyright reasons, since it's partially public information, I can't explicitly state it. However, it aligns with the typical constitution type for the 4 major violent crimes I mentioned earlier. So, did Jang Yoon-gi inherit his constitution type from his father or from his mother? Ah, sad premonitions often come true. According to this constitution clash theory, the constitution type of Lee Chae-won, who was killed by Jang Yoon-gi, would naturally be. This theory states that if the perpetrator is tough, the victim is tender, and vice versa. So you can figure out Lee Chae-won's constitution type. If you plug it into the formula, you will get the answer. I offer my deepest condolences to the late Lee Chae-won, who was wrongfully killed, and my heartfelt sympathies to her bereaved family. Jang Yoon-gi, who brutally murdered a high school girl. Here on this family tree, the square represents a male. He has a tough mind constitution. Since constitution type is hereditary, let's place his father and mother. The circle represents a female. So, the father and the mother. In my view, it seems he inherited his father's constitution type. If that's the case, what is his mother's constitution type? Well, in the case of criminals, this is also a kind of formula. Parents likely have opposite constitution types. Thus, the mother is presumed a tender mind type. Why is it that criminals frequently emerge when parents possess opposing constitution types? This phenomenon arises because, even if such parents appear to live harmoniously, the deep-seated discord, conflicts, and clashes inherent to their contrasting constitutional natures are consistently present. And when parents have opposing constitution types, the child born to them will inevitably grow up amid that discord, clash, and disharmony, leading to a life marked by perpetual instability and anxiety. That inherent instability and anxiety, when encountering a trigger, can be activated at any moment. Primarily, for a tough mind constitution type, it's not so much that they are triggered when they meet another tough type. Instead, it's mostly when a tough type encounters a tender type that their instability and anxiety are ignited, often manifesting as incidents and accidents. I've mentioned that this compatibility is likely to be passed down to the children. Then, we can also infer the constitution types of Jang Yoon-gi's paternal grandparents, both his father's father and mother. Now, since there's a grandmother and a grandfather on each side, that makes 4 in total. For example, it's highly probable that Jang Yoon-gi's father's parents also met as opposite constitution types. I'm unsure how many children he had, but Jang Yoon-gi's father's brother, that is, Jang Yoon-gi's uncle, also holds the profession of a police officer, and it appears the uncle is likewise involved in this particular incident. That's why I presume that Jang Yoon-gi's uncle has the same constitution type as Jang Yoon-gi, and therefore the same as his father. As I mentioned, in Korea, tough types make up about 2/3 of the population, so most organizations, be it public officials, school teachers, or police, have a significant number of tough individuals. Tender types are generally concentrated in specific areas, such as the arts, entertainment, with many actors and singers, or certain sports where their strengths can truly excel. But outside these particular fields, most occupations are primarily dominated by tough. Constitution type is widely distributed, especially the police. The tough mind constitution, characterized by heightened liver and heart functions, our internal organs, as I explained, manifest as personality. Their strong heart and incredible audacity make them well suited for such a profession. Well, there's one son. However, that doesn't mean the police force doesn't have any tender types among its ranks. In public service, you'll find many tender mind constitution types in jobs where they can save lives and feel a sense of purpose. For example, firefighters, or the career path chosen by Lee Chae-won, the student murdered by Jang Yoon-gi, an emergency medical technician. It's said that many tender mind types work in places like the emergency room. I'm not here to brief you on the details of this specific case. I've put together this family tree simply because we need to examine it comprehensively. However, what I truly want to shed light on and emphasize here is Jang Yoon-gi's mother. Earlier, the mother of the victim in the Changwon Motel murder case, and also student Lee Chae-won's mother, both bravely stepped forward to proactively and openly discuss the incidents. They spearhead the efforts to unravel the truth behind this incident, don't they? As you can see, in child rearing and home education, the mother is typically given a much more significant role and responsibility. That's why a mother's home education is so important. Moreover, I've identified Jang Yoon-gi's mother as having a tender mind constitution. As I explained earlier, tender types prioritize truth and possess strong empathy. They would naturally teach their children not to harm others. So it's quite perplexing why her son would ultimately exhibit such behavior. You might be quite puzzled as to how he could have been, in a manner of speaking, neglected until he got to this point. The first reason is environmental in South Korea. As seen in the recent drama True Education, there are these queen mothers raising their little princes and princesses. Mothers' attitudes are increasingly under scrutiny, aren't they? We all recognize this societal trend where people increasingly adopt the mindset of, as long as my child succeeds, it doesn't matter if other children fare poorly. So I believe you'd probably agree with me on that point. The second reason I'm considering is the overall status of women in Korean society. In Korea, we have the term marrying for money, don't we? It's like, ugh, work's too hard, company life is a struggle, so I'll just get married. That sentiment is still publicly prevalent, even in 2026. I truly wonder if such a phrase even exists in developed countries like Japan or other nations we aspire to be like. Thus, there are quite a few women who desire to simply marry well, to put it simply, to enjoy prosperity and reap the benefits from their husband, aiming for a comfortable and easy existence. In such cases, they perceive themselves as inherently weak, becoming overly reliant on their husbands, even if I disagree with him, even if my husband does something terribly wrong. I just have to accept his way and unconditionally submit to him. It's not unthinkable that some women feel this is the only way to preserve their own life. And also, it's highly contagious. It's not just viruses or bacteria that are contagious. Character and temperament can be contagious too. So even if you are a tender type, if there are many tough types around you and their energy is very strong, you might find yourself acting like a tough type, even though you are tender. This happens quite a lot. An unfortunate end for a tough and tender couple, publicly known, is the relationship between So Se-won and So Jung-hee, serving as a clear illustration of this dynamic. For a tender type to endure a tough type, to endure a tough husband, they have to be very strong-willed. Otherwise, it's difficult to handle a tough type. Without that strength, things will follow the same pattern as the Seo Se-won and Seo Jung-hee model. That's why, as I've previously stated, the tender type really needs to devote effort to cultivating their self, elevating their self-esteem, and developing a formidable inner strength. Jang Yoon-gi shares the same constitution type as Yoo Young-chol. Yoo Young-chol's constitution type has been made public, so if you look it up, you'll know. So you probably assume that those who commit such horrific murders were underprivileged as children, right? That perhaps their family was very poor, or their parents constantly abused them, and they were always in terrible circumstances. But often, that's simply not the truth. This photograph depicts the individual responsible for that infamous mass shooting incident in the United States. This woman's son, who was still in high school, was actually the very individual at the center of that incident which tragically claimed numerous lives. So this woman penned a book titled, "I Am the Mother of a Perpetrator." In this specific case, the parents were exceptionally ideal, raising their children with abundant love. Their lives were remarkably stable. Both held advanced graduate degrees, signifying a high level of education. Furthermore, they belonged to the middle class, which afforded them significant financial comfort within their family. And it was her son who murdered so many of those children, those very students, wasn't it? So, when faced with such questions as, why did this happen? There were no problems at home, so why did he behave like that? What I, as a constitution-type practitioner, observe is that in these very cases, this son's mother and father, much like the parents of most offenders, possessed opposite constitution types. When parents are of opposing constitution types, the inherent anxiety, conflict, and clashes flowing between them are entirely absorbed by the child. Consequently, the child lives with constant anxiety, which, as I've mentioned, is often triggered by a particular event. Therefore, to prevent such incidents, the most crucial and necessary action we must take is this: to know the constitution types of both the couple and the child. Once aware of the constitution types, much of that conflict structure, the disharmony within the home, can be prevented. Why? Knowing the constitution type allows you to understand it and provide proper education. This also helps maintain a good relationship with your spouse, greatly reducing the negative impact on children from parents with opposing constitution types. Their personalities are different, their diets are different, and even the times of day they're most active are different. Tender minds should be tender, and tough minds should be tough. I said the eating and sexual instincts are connected, so I said if a tender mind eats incorrectly, they'll find an opposite partner. The tough mind constitution type is strongly nocturnal. Tender minds struggle greatly with being nocturnal. Thus, tender mind constitution types should generally try to avoid late-night activities. If you consider the incidents and accidents that frequently occur in bars at late hours, you'll observe that most happen during the peak time for the tough mind constitution type, their nocturnal hours. In such cases, victims are usually tender constitution types, so tender types should be cautious of their active hours and what they eat. What side dishes are you having today? What music are you listening to? Oh, what music are you listening to? A tender mind person should listen to music by a tender mind singer, right? In the same way, every single one of these choices builds up to create your destiny, so don't miss a single one, and please pay close attention. Yes, that's all for today. Thank you.